The Philadelphia 76ers still with only 2 wins on the season as they dropped the game last night. A very shorthanded 76ers team, but one standout. McCain madness has been so good as a rookie for the Philadelphia 76ers. We're going to break it all down and what is next for this team coming up.
You are Locked On 76ers, your daily Philadelphia 76ers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's going on, everybody? Kayla Santiago alongside Keith Pompey with you each and every day. And today's episode is sponsored by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. So we're going to touch on the Philadelphia 76ers and the Cavs in that matchup last night. Jared McCain and what he's been able to do, and also what is next for this team. My takeaway right now is that Jared McCain is a baller, and I'm loving to see him prove me wrong. I have said on this episode and these podcasts before that I think the 76ers should have gone with Dalton Connect in the draft for a win now mode. Well, Jared McCain is out there proving me wrong consistently. So let's break down this Cavs matchup a little bit, Keith. It comes out that Joel Embiid and Paul George both can't play due to knee management, and then it comes out that Andre Drummond also can't play due to an illness. So coming into this game, this team is already shorthanded. Jared McCain was a standout, still very poor shooting from three-point land. You didn't see it happening. You definitely didn't see the win happening anyway without Andre Drummond too in the equation. Your overall analysis on how you think they went out there and competed last night.
You know what? You have to give them credit because I thought they were going to get boat raced. I mean, I honestly did. I thought like from the giddy up, they were going to just get destroyed. And you have to give Nick Nurse credit. You have to give Jared McCain credit. A lot of other guys credit for the way they played. I mean, think about it. Adem Bona, we're looking at him as a guy that you say he can't get on the floor. You have to have Yabusele out there playing, who's a power forward to be the backup center. So then when they say Adem's going to play, you're like, oh, Lord, this is going to get ugly. But at the same time, you know, the difference in the game was the 76ers couldn't make shots. And something else that stood out, but at the same time, the 76ers, even though they couldn't shoot the ball, they played with a lot of energy. They were gritty. They were feisty. They did a lot of great things. And the Cavs are such a good team. Whenever the Sixers were going to run, they would weather the storm, right? So when we look at that, you have to say for them to be the team that they had of bunch of role players, you have to say that they played, pretty good. I know they don't care about moral victories, but to me, this showed a little bit more than what I've been seeing when they start.
Yeah, and Adem Bona, you bring him up to some early stats for him in the first half, 7 rebounds and 9 minutes off the bench. She's still very raw. He has to grow into his role a little bit, but I was able to see him with the G League squad in the Delaware Bluecoats a few days ago. And his handles for a big fella, a lot of people are comparing him to kind of the Paul Reids of the world for the Philadelphia 76ers. I think at his point right now, his handles are better than Paul Reed, as Paul Reed was a rookie in that season with the Delaware Bluecoats. So he was able to step up in any way that he could. The shooting, 14 for 43 from beyond the arc shooting, 32.6% from three-point land. That still is not a category right now that the 76ers are able to get up and find any type of rhythm. Besides Jared McCain, he's been able to do this thing. But it's crazy for me to say this, and I can't even believe the words are coming out of my mouth. This may be one of the more complete games, maybe the most complete game the Philadelphia 76ers have played all season, because we haven't seen Joel Embiid, Paul George, and Tyrese Maxey on the court at the same time. We've seen Tyrese and PG, where PG was able to make some nice shots, but then, kind of at the end, not making the best decision. Or the other night, Joel Embiid coming in and just not looking great at all. So when you look at this right now, it's really good to see these role players kind of coming out and just making a name for themselves. They had nothing to lose in this game, essentially. You don't have all of your star guys. You don't have Andre Drummond. These role players are coming in and trying to be one of the best teams in the NBA right now in the Cleveland Cavaliers. So I love the effort out there. A loss still isn't great. I mean, it's the Raptors, the Wizards, and the 76ers right now with 2 wins in the Eastern Conference. That is not good to be at right now. They want to get to the playoffs. They want to load manage Joel Embiid and Paul George, but they got to win games to do it. On the flip
Yeah,
side of that, yeah, they have to, right? Like that's the whole thing. I know it's early in the season, but you got to start winning at some point.
yeah, you have to. You have to. I mean, when we look at this 76ers team, it's crazy because, this is a season where there's a lot of excitement. Everybody is talking about how, this is a team that, can basically contend for a championship. But I remember my first year covering the beat, 2013-14 season, and that team, struggled and was tanking. But their first 10 games of the season, they were 5-5, right? 5-6 basically for 11 games. And then all of a sudden you go down to the 2016-17 season, and that team was 2-9. The Sixers are 2-9. So you factor it in now, you assume that the Sixers are gonna, crush what these teams did, in regards to finishing the season. But right now, the difference is they wanted to lose. The Sixers want to win. And we're saying this Sixers team is, on paper, people were saying that this was the greatest team that they had since the beginning of the process. But right now, they're, like you said, one of three teams with only 2 wins, and their record through 11 games is the same as the 2016-17 Sixers. That's not good at all.
And it's early in the season, and I think a lot of people are frustrated, and that can be definitely understanding. I mean, we're frustrated too, just watching this team consistently not be able to win games. But at the same time, I understand it's still early and they can come back, but how much of a hole can you dig yourself in to this point when you're already not going to have Joel Embiid on back-to-backs? And how tough may that be? Because you look at the Eastern Conference standings right now, the Raptors are in dead last, and the 76ers, then the Wizards, then the Bucks, Hornets, Pistons, Heat, Nets, Hawks, Bulls, and then top five, Pacers at 5, Knicks at 4, Magic at 3, Celtics at 2 right now, and Cavs at 1. Now that's going to shift, of course, throughout the season and as it goes along. But this Eastern Conference, too, is no joke when you look at it. And once again, you don't want to be in a situation where you're faced with the play-in tournament or faced as a lower seed going into the playoffs, because you don't want to face the Celtics and the Knicks. But it's not just those two teams. And that's what I truly believed coming into this season. The Sixers were going to be up in the higher echelon with those teams. And I'm not saying that they can't, but what I am saying is that there's a lot of other teams showing right now what they can do. I mean, we saw it last night with the Cavs. You look at Darius Garland coming out there, 25 points, which led the team. Mobley, 14 points, 7 rebounds. Donovan Mitchell just was insane, scoring 11 of those 23 points in the final 3 minutes of the game, people. 3 3-pointers. So there's other teams in this Eastern Conference that you really have to worry about. I'm not saying, Keith, that the Sixers can't lose more games and that this is the end-all be-all, but it's not just the Celtics and the Knicks. There's other teams in this conference, the Pacers, the Cavs, the Bucks, probably going to work, that you have to worry about and start winning some basketball games.
Yeah, it's still early. I mean, you're right. They don't want to, after they don't want to have to, continue to lose and bury themselves. But, it's still early, because as much as we're saying, now again, it's bad, but as much as we're saying there's only 2 teams with winning with 3 teams with 2 wins, how many teams are out there with winning records? Right. You know what I mean? So that's the thing. But you're right. They do not want to continue to keep, getting on this slide. And the one thing is, I even asked Nick Nurse about that, because, like when we talked yesterday, I remember I told you I had a feeling that these dudes aren't playing. And
Yeah.
I felt like
I was
Joel
wrong
Embiid.
again.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I just been around Joel long enough to know
Yeah.
that what Joel tends to do is he likes passing the buck. I hate to say it, but he doesn't want the fans to get upset with him. So what he'll say is, hey, it's up to them. I'll do whatever they say. But ultimately, Joel has a huge say in if he plays or if he doesn't play. But that's another story. But the thing about it is, when I asked Nick Nurse, yesterday, I said, Nick, is there any fear, man, that you guys are going to bury yourself to a point with this load management, that you're not going to get the desired seed that you want? And he kind of answered it, but at the same time, he kind of like sidestep answering it, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
But by his answer, it lets you know what he feels. And this is what he said. He said, "I mean, listen, I don't think there's any. We're certainly not happy with where we're standing right now with our record, right?" He said, "We're certainly going to have to dig our way out of this. We just got to try to do our best we can in getting these guys back on the floor, and first and foremost, and go from there." But the thing that really stood out to me was like, we're certainly not happy with our record where we're standing right now. We're certainly have to dig ourselves out. He knows that, basically the more that you keep doing these load management things and you do all this other stuff, that it's going to be tough after a while if you continue to get out of there. So that kind of goes to what you're saying. But for right now, when you look at it, some of these teams are letting the Sixers off the hook because they can't sustain victories.
And another thing too, with the national media in general pushing for an NBA investigation, another one on Joel Embiid, and another one, and another one. So will that play into any of this? Because we talked about it yesterday. You can't just say, "Oh, I'm not going to play back to backs." There has to be a legitimate injury there or something sidelining you with these new NBA rules. So it's a whole crazy situation going on right now. And I don't want to panic too much because it still is early in the season, and the Sixers have shown some good things, especially in the game last night against the Cavs, which we'll get to in a moment. But good things are great. Wins are better, and you need some wins to be able to get that playoff seeding that you want later on in the season. But we're going to turn the page to some positive things from the rookie in Jared McCain, really the highlight of the night and probably what has been the highlight of the season so far for the Philadelphia 76ers. And we are going to touch on that in just a moment. But there is no better feeling than experiencing these games live in the atmosphere, in the crowd. I love it. I know that you all do too. So if you want to check out on another Philadelphia team, but switching over to the NFL, it's the Ravens and the Eagles. It's Jalen Hurts and Lamar Jackson. It's going to be a fun one that you will not want to miss. And right now, there's a super deal going on for $35 off Club 204, row 7 for $542. This great deal in upper end zone as well. Row 10 at the top 10% value. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, make an account, and make sure you use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, use code LOCKEDONNBA. That's LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off. Download Game Time today. I know that I always use Game Time for any live game that I go to. It is the best deals, the best seats at the greatest value, whatever sport you want it to be, whether it's the MLB, NBA, WNBA, looking at football as well. You want to go check out Game Time today because what time is it? It is Game Time. Jared McCain, proving me wrong once again. I love what I am seeing from him. McCain madness. I'm going to keep calling it that because that's what he's bringing. So Jared McCain coming in 34 points, 10 rebounds as well, 2 steals, and 6 3-pointers made. Keith, do you think Jared McCain at this point is making a stand for himself to be in that starting lineup with Tyrese Maxey out due to injury?
You know what? That's a tough one right then and there. I think he kind of sort of is, but the problem is that when I look at him and Tyrese Maxey, because he's not going to start over Tyrese Maxey,
No.
and Kyle Lowry's not going to be in the starting lineup because they're small too. He's just in there because Maxey's out. The problem with that is now again is offensive firepower. But when you look at McCain, is he going to get enough shots to be able to do the things that he's doing now in the starting lineup? When you look at it, when you see, and you mentioned it before, we're talking about a smaller guard, a guard who keeps getting attacked a little bit on defense. So is that going to be a turnstile defensively? You know what I mean? Like who's going to have to help out, So those are the questions. But, offensively, I mean, he's putting up some crazy numbers. Like, yesterday, when you look at it, he joined Hall of Famer Allen Iverson, who did it twice, and Ben Simmons as the only 76ers rookies in franchise history to produce at least 30 points and 10 assists, right? He also became the fourth rookie in franchise history, joining Jerry Stackhouse, joining Allen Iverson, joining Joel Embiid to score a combined 100 points over 4 games. So when you say this, like, does he deserve to be in the starting lineup? Well, he's putting up numbers that will say, yes, he does deserve to be in the starting lineup. However, when you look at it on the defensive end, that's the only problem, right? The only problem. And you look at it as a fourth option, he's not going to be scoring 32 points. He's just not going to do that. So that's a tough one for me. It really is. I mean,
Yeah.
I think that I wouldn't, even though he does. I feel like he could do it, just because I feel like he could be the spark plug off the bench, and he could do a lot of things for you. But I do think over time, maybe not this, but down the road, yes, he has to be in the starting lineup.
So my whole thought process is this right now. The 76ers have been struggling in different areas, right? And even without Tyrese Maxey. So you look at a starting lineup with Paul George and Joel Embiid. Could McCain go in there? Absolutely. Yes. Does he deserve it? Probably. Maybe over Kyle Lowry? Probably. Without Tyrese Maxey, taking him out of the equation due to the injury. But what I will say is this, and I think you read my mind there, because I absolutely think that the Philadelphia 76ers need somebody off the bench that they can depend on and that can score for them, especially when they're in a rut. And we've seen it throughout the season. It has been time after time, because what do you look at then? If you put McCain in that starting lineup, and I'm talking without Tyrese Maxey on the floor, because he's not going to make the starting lineup with Maxey on the floor. I just don't see that happening. You're going to look to Kyle Lowry to give you 25 points, 20 points a game, 15 points a game, whatever that may be, when Paul George and Joel Embiid are in the lineup with him. I don't see Kyle Lowry doing that coming off the bench. I see Kyle Lowry being in that starting lineup without Tyrese Maxey, being able to facilitate a little bit, get open shots for Paul George, Joel Embiid, whatever that may be. Jared McCain is somebody that you need off the bench. And I know people are not going to agree with that. Does he deserve to be in the starting lineup? Absolutely. I mean, he's averaged 32 and a half minutes so far this year, 25.5 points as well, 2.2 rebounds, 4 assists. And he's been decent from three-point land, 42% and 45 from the field. So he's been putting up the numbers that the Philadelphia 76ers want to see. But Keith, in my opinion, and I will absolutely think this until probably the rest of the season, you need somebody off the bench that can do that. And Jared McCain is going to be that guy for this team, at least is what it's going to look like from here on out.
Yeah, from here on out. I mean, now the thing is, like, and the great thing about yesterday, what happened is, at first they weren't guarding him. They was just letting him do what he wanted. Then secondly, they start like closing out on him. Then they started trapping him, and he was consistent throughout. He was playing. Now, granted, he does, like, the one thing that he needs to improve upon is, like, at the rim, he always gets his shot blocked and stuff like that. But his mid-range game is good. And then secondly, he was knocking down threes. Like, now the thing that gets me was that each time we see him play, he's doing something different. Like this last game, he had 2 steals and he also had 10 assists. So what he was doing is he was like maneuvering like he was going to score and then kicking it out to people and getting dimes that way. So yeah, he's proven that he can do certain things. But I'm with you. He might be better coming off he's going to be better coming off the bench because of the guys they have. But yeah, he's playing extremely well.
And this is a team that needs kind of that firepower coming off the bench. And it's not a spark plug. And as much as I love him, like TJ McConnell, it's not somebody that's just going to come in and give you that spark and be aggressive and knock down a few mid-range shots. Jared McCain can really, really play and really be that solidified scorer. Now, I could see situations throughout this season, especially without Tyrese Maxey or if Paul George is not playing a back-to-back, where Jared McCain is in that 5 lineup at the end of the game coming down to the wire. That is definitely something I can foresee in the future for this team. Now, when all those superstars are back, I don't really see that happening. But right now, I do see that happening in the future. Now, I need Jared McCain, though, coming off the bench. And I don't want to say that, and I don't want to see that because he's proven that he can start. But the Philadelphia 76ers, they need a spark now more than ever, and he has been that off the bench. So What we're going to talk about in just a moment here is where does he rank kind of amongst rookies coming into this season, because he wasn't my pick in the draft. And now I'm going back and saying he might be the steal of the draft. So we will touch on that in just a moment and what is next for the Philadelphia 76ers as well. But first, we do have to tell you all about FanDuel. Hey, NFL fans, you can start the season with a big return to FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. So when you get in a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. You'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Make sure you visit FanDuel.com today. And tonight is the night, people. I've been prepping you all for this, and there is still time to bet on the spread right now. The Philadelphia Eagles are a -3.5 favorites over the Washington Commanders in the NFL. I'm looking forward to this game. So if you think that's correct, make sure you head over to FanDuel right now. Let us know who you want to come out on top of that game, the Commanders or the Eagles. It's going to be a close one. FanDuel is predicting that. Now, once again, these odds can change throughout the day. So if you want that -3.5, make sure to go bet it. And also on FanDuel, you can look at player props and so much more within this game. Make sure you head over to FanDuel today. That's America's #1 sportsbook. All right, so where does Jared McCain rank amongst rookies? There's some people out there saying rookie of the year candidate. Way too early predictions, people. So the ones that I look at right now, Dalton Connect and Zach Edey, are two names that not only are really making names for themselves as rookies, but have since the draft and have since their college careers as well. Keith, where do you see McCain ranking among them? His numbers have been fantastic so far, but once again, Connect, especially Edey, might get a little bit more run in terms of minutes throughout their seasons than McCain might get once the superstars are back for the Philadelphia 76ers.
Yeah, that's the crazy part because, McCain, the 34 points, that's the most points that a rookie has scored this season, right? So he's putting up the numbers, but you're right. I mean, I feel like it would kind of be a little hard for him to say like he's the rookie of the year coming off the bench. Now, if his scoring average goes up to like 20 something or this and that, I could see it. But when we look at Zach Edey, I feel like, more so Edey and Connect, like I feel like it's set up for Zach Edey to get it. Now, McCain, his stock is rising now, but I do feel like because Zach Edey, is playing out on starting on Memphis. He's playing well too. Like I feel like that he's going to be the front runner. Now, if Jared was in the starting lineup, yeah, him. But I don't see him continuing. We talked about that. So I think that Zach is just set up for him to do great things. He has a point guard that's going to get him the ball at times on lobs and things like that. But I just feel like it's set up for Zach Edey to get it.
And Zach Edey was really praised in college, but when he came to the NBA, a lot of people and a lot of analysts said, well, defensively, he doesn't move his feet quick enough and that's not going to transition over to the NBA. And so far it has. He's definitely saw some development, but so does every single rookie coming into this league. So I think Dalton Connect coming in was definitely the rookie setup that you were going to get exactly as advertised, maybe even a little bit better. But you look at Jared McCain and Zach Edey, and I feel like right now it's still early in the season, but they are outliving those expectations because Edey, you expected a little bit more development throughout the season, especially on the defensive side. It might have taken a little bit longer, but so far he's shown what he can do. And McCain, same thing. I mean, we've touched on it before that McCain was a player for the future, and he still is, but we were talking possibly 2 years down the line was when he was going to show who he could really be if Tyrese Maxey ends up taking over this team. Jared McCain's already shown what he can do. I don't see him winning Rookie of the Year, but hey, put up the numbers, make a statement. It happened when Ben Simmons, when Donovan Mitchell said he wasn't a rookie, but he really was with the Philadelphia 76ers. So you never know what can happen. But I love how Jared McCain is playing. I'm excited to see how Nick Nurse is able to adjust him once Paul George is really in that lineup, Tyrese Maxey as well, and how he can be effective, whether in that starting lineup or coming off the bench. But that brings us into what is next for this team, because It has been a really rough start to the season. You're comparing numbers, Keith, to the process years that a lot of people want to forget, the 10-win seasons for the Philadelphia 76ers. So you look at it right now and you say, okay, they probably will have Joel Embiid and Paul George back at some of this time. It's just been really rough for this team. The 3-point percentage, that has to go up. And I don't know if it's Nick Nurse saying you're not leaving this gym until you make 100 threes in a row. I don't know what it has to be, but something needs to adjust. They play the Magic on Friday in Orlando, then the Heat, then the Grizzlies. I'm going to throw this out there. How long do you think it's going to take for Joel Embiid to adjust with his conditioning, with the chemistry of this team going forward in these next few games?
I don't know. Like, I mean, he has to play better than what he does. I mean, first of all, he has to. I mean, when we look at it, he looked gassed. If he's motivated, I'm pretty sure he's going to be out there working hard tomorrow, right? Even though there's an
Mm-hmm.
off day for the team, but you will see him working hard. I think it's up to Joel. My one concern is I got to see him play a couple more games because
Yeah.
my concern was some of his lateral movement wasn't there, things like that. And when you have a guy who had a multiple, not just one, not just two, more than that, surgeries on that knee and things that happen with that knee, it comes to a point where you want to see if, okay, if this is how Joel going to move moving forward, or is this just one of those things he has to get back in shape and he has to get comfortable and confident? So for me, is I would love to say give it a week or two, but I have to see if his knee is really a problem or not, and we'll learn that in a couple of weeks. You know what I mean? I mean a couple of games to see if he
Yeah.
could get through it. But I would love to say in the perfect world with Joel Embiid, it typically takes him like 3 games or so, right? But at the same time, we got to see how bad this knee actually is.
My other concern with him too is how much is he going to play in the stretch? Now, you don't really see many back-to-backs coming up until we get into the first week of December, December 3rd and December 4th, when it's the Hornets and the Magic at home. But from the Magic game that will happen Friday night at 7 p.m. all the way to November 30th, the 76ers don't have any back-to-backs. So will we see Joel Embiid that entire time? That's a question to be remained. But I think you need to. And I don't want him to get injured. If there is an injury there and he cannot play, then he needs to sit out. I am all for that. I do not want to see him playing injured. But the only way we can see him, the only way this grows chemistry, the only way his conditioning gets better, if he actually plays in games and fully in games. So the knee brace was clearly bothering him. The knee was clearly bothering him. He wasn't 100%. And I expected that not to happen, especially against Cat the other night. But Keith, I mean, to me, Joel absolutely has to play in all of these games up until December 3rd. Do you even see a world of that happening? There's no back to back. So, unless there is an injury there and he is sidelined for that, my expectation is that Nick Nurse is going to play him unless they want another NBA investigation.
Um, yeah, he has to play. I mean, but you know what? Even with the NBA, let's keep it real. So the NBA investigation, what they going to do? They're gonna okay. So he'll get fined $125,000. Not him, Josh Harris, who
The
not
team.
only owns the Sixers, he owns the Commanders, he owns the Devils, he
Devils,
owns
yep.
all this other stuff. So you're gonna pay him. Now he's a billionaire. So you're gonna fine him $125,000. And or they're gonna say, oh, his knee was really bothering him or something like that. It's like, man, they can investigate all they want, like, but it doesn't really matter because we're talking about you're going to find a billionaire like 125,000. Now, if you find me 125,000, then I'm in major trouble. Like,
Yeah, me too.
I'm
I'm
like,
there with
yo,
you.
yeah, I'm in major trouble. But if you find him that, it's kind of like, okay, well, you want it in $1 bills or what? You know what I mean? How do you want it? How do you want it? So, you know what? Nah, I mean, they can investigate all they want. I think the league created this monster when they started doing load management, and now all of a sudden it's like they're trying to put the genie back in the bottle, but you can't do it, right? So
Yeah.
Yeah, people are going to investigate it as much as they want, but I don't know. I don't think it's going to change. I'll be honest with you. Because think about, he's been doing this for years, for
Yeah. And
seasons.
right.
Yeah,
Yeah, and you look at other players too, like Kawhi Leonard and all those guys that have kind of been just sitting out trying to get ready for the playoffs. But my whole thing, once again, and I will end with this, they want to get to the playoffs. They want to get Joel and Paul George there healthy. They want to have a good seed in the playoffs. To do that, you have to win basketball games. It is early in the season. I know that, people, but this team cannot dig themselves too much into a hole. So, what I want to see, if I was Nick Nurse, if I was this team, now it's not my decision. I want Joel to play until that December 3rd game to see if he can gain chemistry with this team. His conditioning can get better, unless that knee is really, really, really bothering him to the point where he cannot go out there and play. Because the only way his conditioning will get better is if he plays an actual basketball game. So we're going to wait and see. As the Philadelphia 76ers, they have a day off today in terms of gameplay, but they will be back in action tomorrow night against the Orlando Magic in Orlando. That tip-off is at 7 p.m. Thank you all so much for tuning in to Locked On 76ers. For Keith Pompey, I'm Kayla Santiago saying so long. We will see you next time and preview more of the Magic and 76ers and maybe have an answer to see if we'll see Joel Embiid and Paul George in that game.